Good morning, 7-1. Mr. Brown here. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm sending this because I wanted to give you a sort of a video representation of what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks, which is reading our graphic novel called March. And of course, this is a graphic novel, so it's going to be very different than the novels we've been reading, which have essentially just been word on a page, words on pages, I should say. A graphic novel, I'm sure you're somewhat aware, is a novel-based book, nonfiction or fiction, that does have like a comic strip type of format. They call it a graphic novel because we're going to be dealing with pictures and things like that. So it's picture format, it's text format, and what might differentiate it from a comic strip is that it's a long format. It's a novel. So you get the whole thing. You get the plot, you get the character representation, all of that that goes with it, setting, everything else that goes with the novel that we've been reading, except that it follows along um, with graphic elements. And it may sound easy, but I just want to go out over the layout, the general guidelines of a graphic novel, just to make for it to be easier to read. So we'll go over that in a Prezi now. This Prezi you will have as well as a link today that you can look at. And so if you want to open that now as we go over this, you can do that now. Okay? All right, so the graphic novel format. So I'm going to open up our Prezi here, make it big, and the first thing we're going to go to is paneling. Okay? So how many layouts on a page, how many fit in a strip, how do you read the layout of a graphic novel is something we're going to go over here. So you've got a couple of different, a few different examples and styles here, and they can differentiate, but they get to roughly the same thing. So let's get to um, colorization of two ladies in the picture. Why has this illustrator chosen to color the women in all black? Okay. What mood does this panel give the reader, and how do you know? What is the positioning, say, of Marjane's hands? Tell the reader. Okay, so absolutely no text there, but we can see the women in black looking very imposing on the little girl who's got her hands up. We can get tone and mood through this without words, and sometimes, as we know, tone and mood can be easier with pictures. So here we've got the sort of the staring looks, the look of possible anger, or disgust. The fact that they're hovering over her in black means that they are very ominous to the young lady. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so purpose of captions. Okay, narration found in the boxes. Okay, why are some of the speech balloons jagged, for example? Do you read a speech balloon differently depending on the shape, and how do you know? So certainly we can see different kinds of balloons, which denote, as we know, text, and in this case, people speaking. So we've got characters, dialogue. You've got very typical dialogue there, with just the sort of like a rectangular balloon rounded at the edges, and then you've got the jagged ones there, and you can tell by a mob being very violent that they're probably screaming in unison. So these are things that we look for. Okay, let's move on. Um, how do you read a page with multiple speech balloons? Okay, so there's a way to read it. In most cases, it's going to be left to right. Sometimes it's going to be top to the bottom. Okay. As far as panels are concerned, you'll always be reading the panels left to right, top, left to right, and then bottom, left to right in that order. Okay, let's move on. Okay, let's see what we've got next. Okay, we've got the layout again. Okay, so layout refers to how panels are arranged on a page. Three panels in a row, one panel larger than others. Okay, so if you can take a look at this one, our example here, we've got 4 frames all in various sizes. Okay, the other one, 6 frames, 3 are smaller and the other are larger. Okay, that might be just a stylistic element. Okay, but certainly the same situation, we're going to read left to right and then from top to bottom, left to right. Okay, you can see that panel there. You can see this panel, 3 short ones at the top, 3 long ones at the bottom. You're going to read left to right, then bottom left to right. Okay, A panel is an individual frame, maybe a single drawing in the panel in a sequence of the strips, okay? Consists of single drawings depicting a frozen moment. So all three of these are individual photos that can make up action. So in the first one, you can see Abraham Lincoln sort of striding on the stage in front of his crowd during, I'm assuming, the Gettysburg Address. When you go to the left top, excuse me, the right top, you can see the people waiting for him to speak. And then when you go to the bottom one, you can sort of see him put his hand to his mouth there saying ahem, which probably denotes or connotes that he's about to speak. Okay, so you can see where he's walking the stage, looking at the crowd. We get a close up of the crowd, and then we get Abraham Lincoln clearing his throat about to speak. So we've got single panels that make up action. Okay, closer look. Okay, now frames. Okay, we went from panels to frames. The lines and borders that contain the panel. Okay, so these lines show the individual panels. They separate different panels. These frozen scenes, our same situation. Abraham Lincoln in one scene on the stage. You can see where they've bolded the lines with the close-up of the crowd, anticipating his words, and then Abraham Lincoln clearing his throat. Okay, the three frames. Okay, the close-up of those. A gutter is a space between frame panels. The space between panels is referred to as the gutter. The gutter indicates a shift between one panel and another. That should be self-evident. That should be just common sense. Same thing with Lincoln. We've got the three separate panels that are making up one complete page of action. Okay, in sequence. Walking the stage, a crowd anticipating, and the president clearing his throat, okay? And a bleed. A bleed is an image that extends beyond the edge of this page, okay? So bleeding in that sense means that an image can continue on to a next page or bleed into a next page. They can cover both pages. A technique often used in graphic novels, okay? So a bleed. So you can see one image entering another, and that is also a continuation of action, so that's pretty easy to read. Okay, there's our example there. A lot of action going on with the robot. Um, the left to the right, then the bottom left to the right. Okay, important stuff. Foreground, midground, and background. Okay, these shows where an object is in space. Is it close up or is it far away? Now, the foreground are objects that appear closest to the viewer, you as the reader. Okay, it's the main focus. A midground are objects between the foreground and the background, just as it implies, in the middle of the picture. A background, obviously, anything that's going on in the back of the picture, farthest away. It's subtextual information for the reader. The objects in the midground and background help provide story support and establish mood. So I think it's safe to say that if we see something in the background, it's probably not as important, but could be relevant to the story. Okay, let's take our examples. We've got a foreground here, okay? We've got a female character. She's in the foreground. She's the main point of this particular panel. She's the main focus point. Okay, you can see there she's sort of being shot. The midground. The man is in the midground. He's the one doing the shooting, okay? He's of secondary importance, but he's being relied on to tell this story. He's the one shooting the girl from a slight distance, okay? So she's in the foreground, he's in the midground, and we've got background. A smaller figure is in the background, okay? His placement shows that his presence contributes to the backstory, but is not the most relevant, because right now, this picture shows the relevant thing going on is this young lady being shot, or at least being pointed at with a gun. And we've got the middle ground character there doing the pointing, and that background figure not as important as a woman in danger, but certainly it tells us that he's in the background and he's at least witnessing it. So we can infer, doing a lot of inference here, that he's witnessing something that could be serious and that he could be a big part of being a witness. Okay, so foreground, middle ground, midground, and background. Okay, graphic weight. Okay, a term that describes the way some images draw eyes more than others. Okay, This example here is this character's clothes are all black and the others are gray. Because her clothing is darker, the reader's eye is automatically drawn to her. This shows that she's the focus of the panel. Again, inferring. Okay, so that would require inference. Okay, we look at everything as gray. Nothing is in color. But she is in that dark black, and of course we've got the text going on. Hey, you new girl. Okay, so she is literally the center of attention in that sense, in that she's in the center of the panel, and she stands out because she's got the darker clothing on, where everything else is gray. If you imagine this as the giver, maybe Jonas would be in color, and everything else would gray, and then he would really stand out. He would really pop out as a main character. Okay, so graphic way. Some images draw our eyes more than others. The moment that something draws our eyes, it probably is something important in the panel, especially if there isn't much in the way of text, because we've got to infer the importance. Okay, faces. Faces can be portrayed in different ways. Some depict an actual person, like a portrait. Others are iconic, which means they're representative of an idea or a group of people. Other points to observe about faces include they can be dramatic when placed against a detailed backdrop. A bright white face might stand out. That's sort of like that weight that we just learned about. Um, they can be drawn without much expression or detail. This is called an open blank. Again, inferring. This invites the audience to imagine what the character is feeling without telling them. Okay, so in this case, it's being inferred. So if we go back to our Abraham Lincoln panel for a moment, he's clear. Abraham Lincoln is clearly and is very dramatic due to its realism. Okay, so it's sort of a realistic drawing. Again, the clearing of the throat, the hand to the mouth, the heavy brow. We've got a lot of sort of tension there. So this tells us, if we remember the panels prior, this tells us that he is about to speak and is probably nervous about it. Let's compare that to the other panel. Okay, these faces are an open blank, meaning that the reader must use their understanding of the text and speech to comprehend the emotions of the character. Okay, so just as tone and mood, we can infer tone and mood through reading, we can infer tone and mood through, particularly mood, through facial features. If that doesn't help, then we might have to go with what they're saying as well. Okay? And hands and feet, very important if you can believe it. The positioning of hands and feet can be used to express what is happening in the story. Hands that are raised with palms out suggest surprise or fear. I think we saw a panel before with the young lady, the two women hovering over the young lady, and she had her hands up in fear. The wringing of hands suggests obsequiousness or discomfort, meaning that wringing hands, a sort of a discomfort. Someone who obsequious is someone who is, just sort of, a little scared and frightened, and the wringing of hands can show that. Hands over the mouth depict fear, shame, or shyness. Okay, so fear, shame, or shyness. Hands over the mouth. Turned in feet may denote embarrassment. If you can imagine turning your feet are sticking out straight, and you sort of turn them inward very often without any text, this could denote, we can infer like shyness. Okay, feet with motion strokes can create the sense of panic, urgency, or speed, particularly if they're motion strokes that show that they are moving. They could be walking quickly, briskly, maybe nervous, but that's something that you would have to infer within the context of all the panels. In this case, we have Abraham Lincoln. This shows that feet are those feet. His feet show movement. Okay, one foot in front of the other. As I said, he's sort of stalking the stage a little bit. This lady here, the hands placed on the chin, it shows deep thought. Okay, and then of course this one's easy. The outstretched hand denotes urgency and wanting. Don't go, please. Don't leave me here. Outstretched hands. Okay, the idea of urgency and maybe possibly fear. Okay, the lady with the hand to the chin always looks like someone's in deep thought. Shading and color. This is really important for mood. Very important for mood. Color and shading show feelings, moods, and emotions with different colors. Is an object solid black? Is it light gray? Or is it white? The colors and the shading matter. If we take a look at the first panel, the darkness hangs over the girls in an oppressive manner, meaning that it's sort of bearing down on them and not in a good way. That's like oppression. Okay, but something